and welcome to another huge update interview. And currently I'm with Pixelburn, aka Bitscreed, aka Matt from
Hello.
Pixelburn. Just introduce yourself.
Right, well, my name's Matt. I present a sort of a weekly YouTube gaming news roundup called Pixelburn under the channel of youtube.com/Bitscreed. Sorry, was that too early to get the plugs in?
No, go for it. Plug away.
A weekly gaming news roundup of sorts that takes a sarcastic look at some of the more important, interesting, or irritating things to have happened in the week's gaming news. Yeah, that bit is totally scripted. It's burned into my brain now.
Yeah.
Every week saying the same thing. I could just reel it off.
I'm going to retcon this a bit.
Oh, okay.
Because I just want to put down as a disclaimer that this is our second interview. I've done this before. It's happened before in another interview, and I've had to do the same thing. It's just poor recording quality on my side. So this is our second interview. So if we're sounding a bit more loose with each other or anything like that, yeah, that's because
we've been talking about Metal Gear.
That's because we've been talking for probably now 4+ hours over the past few days. More or less.
Stuff I read on a wiki. I'm not a Metal Gear expert. Putting that disclaimer out there now.
You don't want to get those fans on you, because they'll prove you wrong fast.
Which is why I don't want to get into discussion with any. And that's why I'm playing Phantom Pain just to strap balloons to horses and goats.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, the first question I had is, what actually made you start wanting to talk about games in general? Because you started with a blog, and I'm curious as what actually made you want to start that to begin with.
Well, I've been playing games ever since a young age. Started off with the ZX Spectrum back when I was about 10 years old. Back in the days when games all came on cassette tape and took about sort of 5 minutes to load. Not much different from nowadays. We just buy it from a shop, put it in your PS4, and it's going to take half an hour to update. So in a way, it was kind of better back then. But over the years, I've progressed through various different systems. Been playing games my whole life, as I say. And I think what really inspired me to sort of talk about them is I had lots of opinions, ideas, and all sorts about not just games themselves, but also the industry and games press and everything, all the sort of the culture surrounding games. And I'm trying to think, I can't recall any specific trigger that made me go, I want to do and talk about games. It was a few years ago. I originally started a short-lived sort of gaming blog, another one with two friends of mine. That fell through, but I found that I really enjoyed actually following up on all gaming news, which I did before, but casually, but actually really sort of keeping up on it all as much as possible and hearing all the latest developments. It retained my interest, and I wanted to keep talking about it. And I started off by just writing at first, which also scratched my writing itch. And then I sort of branched out into video from there, and I've been doing this ever since.
So there was obviously a point in where your blog turned into videos, and I just wonder not only what was that actual transition for you as a choice to actually go into video production, but what actually got you, what was that transition like, and just what actually made you want to make videos to begin with?
Well, I originally considered myself a writer, so I will write about games, and I will put out lots of words every week with lots of big words thrown in there, and people will read it and scratch their chins and go, yes, I agree with what this person is saying, or I profoundly disagree. I originally considered the idea of doing videos as sort of like an adjunct to that, just as a little sort of side thing. And I wasn't going to jump in the deep end straight away, because I knew bugger all about anything to do with making videos. I knew rough bits, like you needed a video editor and you needed fraps to record game footage and things. So I started off with Let's Plays. I bought a copy of Fraps because I'm honest. I downloaded Audacity because it's free, and read up on various sort of like the Let's Play subreddit on reddit.com is actually a very good resource to anyone who's looking to get into Let's Plays. But I've since moved on from Let's Plays. But I started off with Let's Plays just to get my feet wet, get used to the idea of just learn video editing. But I always wanted to move on from there to do stuff that covers gaming news in particular, things or news as such, just anything interesting that's happening in gaming. And I hit on the idea of, I'd like to do like a weekly scripted thing that I would try to make sort of funny, entertaining, and informative. And so I started the first episode of Pixelburn. Let's see, because I actually do have a timeline to hand here. Let me just... I started on the 1st of February 2000. No, that's when I started my website. The actual first upload of my Pixelburn was 22nd of September 2013. And I've been doing that ever since then and just loving every minute of it.
Something that cropped up in our last discussion, which I'm going to bring back now because I actually found it rather interesting when we were talking about it, was your actual approach to covering the news of the week, not only with a sarcastic like twist to it, but the fact that you adopted a BBC mentality of keeping neutral within a discussion.
Oh, sorry, give me.
No, I just wanted to get you rolling on that question.
Well, with the BBC thing, when I mentioned earlier, I wanted to make it entertaining as well. There's I believe it's guidelines in the actual BBC mission statement or equivalent, but it's got a fancier name, where programs must be entertaining, informative, and I believe educational. They've got to be at least entertaining and informative. And I took those two as a sort of a maxim for myself. Because anyone can just sort of like just read off an auto cue, and that could be quite boring. And anyone could just make jokes and not say anything. I wanted to sort of try and combine the two and sort of like inform people, but also make them laugh. But at the same time, I also wanted to be relatively neutral as much as I can, really, because I do have opinions and I do express them in the show, which has probably knocked me off a few Christmas card lists for anyone listening. But I tried to sort of marry those two to produce something that is entertaining and informative, so that you can learn something from, but also have a laugh at.
It was just curious of just you wanted to keep yourself neutral within a story to show both sides, and I was just wondering, was there any particular story that you covered that it felt tough for you to keep that neutrality through?
I'll start off with a sort of a success, what I consider a success story in terms of like keeping neutral, was the recent SPJ Airplay event in Miami, Florida, which was a sort of like public conference about ethics in journalism, and some representatives from Gamergate were there, as well as some representatives from the American press and Derek Smart, for some reason.
I think he was the only guy at hand or something.
I think he was the only one who was like willing to, the only developers were like able to go at the time, and he was there as a neutral party. I'd wanted to cover that as neutrally as possible. No, because the way I saw it is that there's a lot of... it's really hard to sort of explain. I think I did a very good job in covering that neutrally without sort of like jumping to either side of the bandwagon, either being 100% pro Gamergate or 100% anti, which I am neither. I consider myself strictly neutral on that. When it comes to stories I find it hard to be neutral on, it's anything to do with consumer issues is one, and anything where developers have been given the short end of the stick. I'm sort of pro-consumer, I'm also pro-developer. Sometimes those things conflict, and that is when it gets really, really hard to maintain neutrality, as it were.
Yeah.
And so then I just have to sort of examine the facts as I see them and present it as I see it. I hope that was coherent enough.
No, yeah, don't worry. Away from all that, yeah. I want to touch on just like something that cropped onto my head after our interview first time around. Was just with you starting making videos, did you feel like if you had tried this any time before you did, it would have been harder because of like the ready to go tools that technology has provided? Or do you think you would have just done this anyway, no matter what the time?
I often say to my dear friend Ability Train, who's also on YouTube and I've been friends with for years, we both sort of like occasionally say, oh, if only we'd started this sooner. And that's probably one regret I have, is that I didn't start this sooner. I didn't get the courage to sort of jump in and experiment with this and find that I loved it so much. So I definitely would have started earlier if I could. Because it's a kind of a double-edged sword. A lot of the resources out there, information sources that have been really useful to me, were sort of laid down by people who've done this already. If I'd started super early, I may not have had those resources. But also existing examples of YouTubers who've done stuff that's maybe not exactly the same, but very similar, so like news reporting type. Doesn't even have to be anything to do with news. Any YouTubers who have very good production values on their videos, even Let's Play videos, they require a lot of work as well. that sort of lays down standards for other YouTubers to see and at least try and reach. And I'd see higher quality what I considered high quality videos, and said if I was to ever make videos, I would want it to be at least as good as that in terms of quality. So it's tricky. Like I said, there are advantages and disadvantages to starting earlier and starting later. But I would have started earlier if I could.
When you did start, because this is something that I've found, and I believe almost everybody agrees on this. When you started, how soon did it take you to realize how much more effort you were having to put into making videos?
Oh god, I think possibly when I reached the end of my first script, and I was thinking, this might take me a bit of time each week, because as well as I sort of like, if you don't mind, I just sort of go into just the kind of routine I have. The steps in the process to making a Pixelburn video. Number one, I start researching stories that interest me. Anything that sort of comes up in the news that week, I'll make a note of it, along with any URLs to specific stories with more information, and I'll make a note and try and pick up as much info as possible. Once I've sort of, this will be all going on during the week, unless I start playing XCOM Enemy Within for some reason, or get distracted by any number of other things. But generally, in a good week, I'll pick the stories I'm interested in advance, research them, which takes a huge chunk of my time. The other thing that takes a large chunk of my time is writing it, which can vary. Writing the script can be either, bang, I just get it done in a night, or it's just a long, torturous process. I start halfway through the week and barely manage to get finished by Saturday or Sunday. And then after that is acquiring footage, which again can be time consuming, but not as much, because usually you get nice big chunks of footage that you can then sort of slice little bits out of that fit whatever story I'm trying to talk about. And then the part that really takes the most time, I find, is the editing. The editing takes almost as long, if not longer, than researching and writing. I sort of lump research and writing together in one, because that's a kind of like a joint process, and editing is another part, and they take up the most of my time, which only leaves me very little time to do any other kind of videos during the week.
So something that's just recently happened, and I would like to get your opinion on it as someone who is on YouTube. How have you felt with the introduction of YouTube gaming service?
I have a few issues with that. I've already been hearing lots of reports of people getting their streams shut down because YouTube have just taken Content ID and slapped it onto YouTube Gaming, which doesn't work.
Yeah, I've heard they've ramped it up as well. Like it's even more aggressive.
Yeah, it's even more aggressive, so that as soon as anything vaguely resembling something that is copyrighted material pops up, it's just shunk, shut down the stream, cut it all off. I haven't actually used the streaming features yet myself. My biggest issue with YouTube Gaming right now is I can't change the colours on my YouTube Gaming.
Truly the hardest problem.
That is the hardest problem for me right now, because I went there and it's taken info from my YouTube channel as well as the header image, and it's decided to give me the colours of orange and black. I was like, okay, that's why, because I can see why they got it from my actual header image, which is predominantly orange and black in colour. But I would like to change this. Is there an option to change this? No. You're just stuck with whatever colour scheme matches your header image, and that's annoying. That's my biggest annoyance with gaming at the moment. I just can't tweak it. Did it never occur to them that maybe I'd like my YouTube Gaming page to look slightly different? Well, of course not. It's fucking YouTube, isn't it?
So it's got you can't even upload an image to the background.
No, you can't. It's just solid colour, and another thing is that it completely scales my header image wrong. So like when you scroll further up, it'll sort of pan down a bit more. But then my image is just sort of sitting in the middle, surrounded by this big black border. And it's like, well, that looks rubbish. Thanks, YouTube Gaming.
I think I may know the problem to this. The problem to this, because I found it really funny when I first came across it, when it launched and like the little header came up. I read it and I was just like, and it said like YouTube Gaming made by gamers, and I went, I want website. I want website engineers to build this, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I like watching I like watching.
I'm just going to say also, you know, one thing gamers like YouTube, customization option.
It's the number one thing everybody complains about when a game doesn't have.
Yeah, I love. Oh, I've wasted so much time over the years in character creation for various games. It's one of my favourite parts of a lot of games, actually. I spent hours doing it, and it's like, yeah, I've got my Commander Shepard looking just the way I wanted to. And then you get into the game, it's like, why does it look completely different? I had that problem with Dragon Age, trying to recreate my Hawk from Dragon Age 2 in Dragon Age Inquisition, which I still haven't finished. And it's like, okay, in this character generation screen, she looks just how I want her. In the game, my god, she looks like someone who's thrown out of like a carnival.
Mass Effect 1 first came out.
Mm-hmm.
All the developers, BioWare, came out and said, this customization tool is so robust, but it's totally real. You can't make crazy things. We're making serious characters here. And like one of the first articles to come out about it was just like, here's how you make George W. Bush.
A completely hideous circus.
Yeah.
Which are some of my favourites, actually. I like occasionally looking at pictures and seeing what monsters people create.
It's always the best. I think like the best character creation I've ever seen, because whenever I see videos of it, it's always hilarious to see, and that's WWE entries.
Really?
Yeah, their character creator is nuts. You can blow the stomach out to stupid, disgusting proportions and give them really long arms.
I can't remember the last WWE game I played. It was years ago. I think it was on PlayStation 2. I just made like the skinniest man possible.
Oh, you played the good one.
It might have been. I'm not a wrestling fan. Just making that disclaimer now.
Neither am I. But if you want a good time, get 4 people and try and do a ladder match. It'll take you 2 hours, but you'll die of laughter before it finishes. It's so broken. It's hilarious.
Bear that in mind. In terms of character creators, actually one of the best ones I've ever found was the City of Heroes character creator. That's a bloody good character creator.
That was robust as hell.
It was rough as hell, but the options they gave you... I mean, again, kind of related to our previous discussion about Metal Gear before the interview started. So I saw a gallery recently, loads of people basically recreated Metal Gear characters in the City of Heroes character creator. Metal Gear Solid 1 all the way up to like Rising Revengeance. and it's like, alright, they're not exactly, but they're bloody close.
Yeah, because what I said, it was really robust.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because I remember when that game came out, and it was like, I was playing other MMOs, and it's just like, oh, okay, what's the thing that's going to win me over here? And I was just like, whoa, I could make anything in this, and it was a lot of fun messing around with that character creator.
Oh, you could just waste hours just playing that. It was worth the subscription fee on its own.
Getting back to our interview.
It was another problem in our previous interview, wasn't it?
Trust me, it's what I always love most about doing these interviews. It's just making these weird tangents happen, because I find that it gets the interviewee into a lot more comfortable space, and it lets
give them enough rope to hang themselves.
Hopefully not. I hope not to. I hope my interviews are nice.
No, the interviews have been very nice so far.
So yeah, on the fact of like us talking about YouTube gaming and YouTube in general, do you find that with how you make content, like a weekly based thing, do you feel that if you were to convert back to doing LPs that you'd be able to get more hits, or is doing this weekly thing a lot more satisfying for you?
Basically, doing Pixelburn every week is a lot more satisfying for me. Sorry, I just answered your question straight away without going on a tangent. So
that's fine.
Now, the Pixelburn is definitely more satisfying for me because it satisfies several sort of creative itches of mine. I get to do really sort of like elbows deep into video editing. I get to write more than I ever did in the past, which is great because it satisfies my writing itch. I get to keep up on almost everything that's happening and kind of wow people with this sort of like faux encyclopedic knowledge I seem to have, when in fact I tend to forget it after a week and a half. Whereas also the problem with Let's Plays is I still do first impressions videos, and a few months ago I released a couple of more episodes of a Walking Dead Let's Play, which I really should get around to finishing. And it's just so much harder to get noticed and to get eyeballs on your content when you're just doing Let's Plays, unless you're absolutely 100% star quality, kind of next PewDiePie, and you can definitely sort of really, really stand out somehow, either by being really, really interesting and engaging, or by being really annoying. But unless you got like one end or the other of that spectrum, it is very hard to get noticed.
With all the other videos that are going on, obviously like Pixelburn has been your favourite project, and by the sounds of it, because one of the videos you did last, it was your update video, you talked about like actually changing the formula up a bit, and I was just wanting you to talk a bit more about that, like because you mentioned collaborations and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always up to sort of like doing collaborations. The only problem is a case of me finding the time, because Pixelburn takes up so much of my time each week, which is why whenever anyone, so I have been asked to do collaborations in the past, not too many, but once or twice, and I've always, at the back of my mind, is like, can I commit the time to them? I don't want to say yes and then let them down later on. And for me, it's really just a question of time, because I work full time as well during the day, and then in the evenings is when I get to work on my videos. So time is the thing I'm at a real sort of like shortage of at the moment. I would love to sort of defy the laws of time somehow and find ways to get these done, to sort of do more collaborations, and also just to sort of branch out into different areas. I've had some ideas for little bits here and there. I would definitely love to do more first impressions, because I enjoy them as well, but for a different reason to Pixelburn, because the simple fact that I'm just getting to see new and interesting games. And I take the same approach to that as I do with Pixelburn when it comes to picking news items. It's not necessarily big games, but just anything that I read a description or I see in a screenshot and go, that looks interesting. I want to see what that's about.
Yeah, because the last one you did was on Yahtzee's last game,
yes.
which I didn't even know was a thing until that video came out, and it's like I knew he made games. He talks about them all the time. I had no idea that he just threw this project out, and it was because of you just showing it. It was just like, this is actually really interesting, and it did actually make me eventually like track it down and at least give it a try.
How are you finding it?
Weird. You definitely see a lot of his writing in there.
You do, definitely.
And you also see a lot of his game making in there, in which you can definitely see that it's rough.
Yeah.
But you can see the spark of something that he definitely wanted to do, and I found it at the end. I was like, this is a very interesting take on a genre of games, because it's more or less a roguelike. But
yeah, very much so.
I enjoyed the twist on it. I enjoyed the fact that it wasn't, while it did have combat, it wasn't combat heavy.
It was that very much shows his Silent Hill influences, especially Silent Hill 2. Because obviously, while the Silent Hill games have combat in them, that's not the main focus of them. I mean, as I think I said this in my first impression video, he does kind of wear his influences very much on his sleeve. Which there's nothing wrong with that. It can be fun to see what has influenced the game, and like I said, it could be a sort of a guide to let you know whether you like it or not. 'Cause if you like a game that has clearly influenced this, but he's done something a bit different with it or put a new spin on it, then you might enjoy it. I personally enjoy it very much, and I've put quite a lot of hours into it. And it did pass Steam greenlight, so it will be getting a Steam release soon with achievements and some extra stuff he's adding, challenge modes, marathon modes, that kind of thing. So he's still working on it.
Going back to what you just touched on, because now I've got to know, because you said you got ideas burning in the back of your mind, and now I want to know what they are. So if you're comfortable sharing them, if you're not, I understand.
I think, do I still have them in my notebook here, or is it in another pile of notes somewhere else entirely? I'm terrible when it comes to taking notes for things, because I'll take notes and then I'll leave the notes somewhere else, like in a drawer somewhere. And I'll have completely forgotten where they are, and then I'll find them months later and go, oh, check this out, I've got too much rubbish lying around. I definitely love to do some more. One idea I will tell you that I always have had, almost as long as I had the idea for Pixelburn, if not before, was basically just to do sort of like a semi-serious analysis of horror games. Specifically, what was the idea I'm trying to remember the exact sort of like one-sentence summary I wrote for this. the idea is basically just to analyze them. That was it. It was to see which ones are scary, which ones are not, how they're scary or how they're not. Just basically sort of a real in-depth kind of look at what makes some horror games work for me personally, and maybe not for others, and vice versa. I'll call it Spooky Bits. Please don't steal that name, listeners. That's probably my main one that I would love to do one day.
Obviously, you're saying it would be a more serious look at horror games, and like, how far down would you actually go into like the horror game route? Because like over the last few years, it's absolutely exploded. There's been a complete renaissance in it,
which is great for horror fans like me, especially fans of more pure horror. You know, like your Amnesias, your Alien Isolations. Although Alien Isolation does have weapons, I tend to like.
How did you actually find that game in the end? I was always curious because you were really big on it, and then I just wanted. What was your thoughts at the end of it? Because I'm curious, because I played it, and I want to just hear what you thought of it at the end. Okay,
confession time. I haven't finished it yet.
Oh God, I feel bad. I feel sorry for you. You have no idea what's in store, then.
I am right. I believe I've passed the point of no return.
Which one?
I've found a certain chap who's had an unfortunate chest explosion, and he was someone we met before and was helping me out. I really don't want to spoil too much. All right, basically, Ripley's mate, who was like guiding her down below the reactor core and stuff. I've come up and found him dead.
Yes, I know where you are.
And I know what's coming after that, or specifically what. Well, they've already seen 2 of the buggers running around.
Yeah.
So I know I'm relatively near the end, but I kind of got sidetracked trying to find other stuff. And then, after a very unfortunate encounter with the xenomorph, which was cool, but left me very low on flamethrower fuel, I'm like, I'll come back to this later. And other things have cropped up, and I haven't been able to go back and finish it. But here's another sort of horror game confession: Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Well, I bought that, played it day one. I played all of 45 minutes before I took a break. Okay, wow, that's intense. I'll take a break and come back to it later. 6 months later, I'm sitting there, and it's like I see it in my Steam library taunting me. It's like, play me. You call yourself a horror game fan, you got to finish me. I was like, no, go away, Amnesia. But then 6 months later, I looked at it and go, right, I'm going to finish the rest of you in one sitting, you bastard. And I did. But that also reminds me of you remember the original AVP on PC?
Yes.
The Rebellion one. That I had a similar moment with that, which was over like several months, where I got to a certain part in the game, I'd load it up, I'd sit there for about 30 seconds, and then I'd shut it down again. And it took me the weird thing was, or the sad thing was, it was on the Predator campaign. I was
really?
a Predator. I'm like one of the most heavily armed, best hunters in the galaxy. And you know what's freaking me out? A fucking face hugger round a corner in a sewer pipe. So the bit I got to was, it's like a sort of a pipe system going straight ahead, and there's another one branching off that sort of curves around, and you can hear it skittering because it's right round that little sort of bend. And I'm like, I load up, and it's like, okay, I'm going to do this, and you hear skit, 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 skit. And I'm like, I'll do that later. And then one day I plucked up the courage, like, right, fuck this. I've got the plasma pistol out, ran around the corner, fired about 3 shots. It died on the first one, but I was like, yes, finally. Oh, there's bugger all else down here. I'll just carry on down the main tunnel. Another facehugger just jumps right in my face. I actually jumped right out of my chair. Like, you bastard. But that got me over the rest of my fear. So I loaded it up again, killed the one around the corner, killed the one further down the tunnel, and went on to finish the game that day.
If I was to tell you that where you are in isolation, you've got another 10 hours, would you believe me?
Yes, I would. And that would probably be my major criticism with the game, is that pacing.
It's super long.
It did a good job to break it up a bit with flashback moments and other bits where you can just let rip with weapons on like hostile crew and androids. That was kind of a really good break in the tension before they bring the alien back. Spoilers, by the way, listeners. But now this last bit is kind of dragging on quite a bit, and I'm like, yeah. And that's one problem with a lot of very pure horror games, is usually the shorter the better. I mean, Amnesia isn't that long once you sort of know all its tricks, but then once you know all its tricks, it loses its impact.
Yeah.
But I think if Alien Isolation had been shorter, so I'd finished it to the point where I am now, it would be. I think it's absolutely a superb example. It's still a great example of horror, but it just has a slight problem with the length and pacing. The sound, however, is amazing, and I'm really glad they won a BAFTA for that.
Yeah, I wish they got a bit more recognition, but I have to agree on, because when it was me and my girlfriend who was playing it, and we were like, this game, like we stopped being scared.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend hates scary movies. She can't watch them. She doesn't like them. We don't do it that often. So, but she really is a big fan of Alien. So we got Alien Isolation first day, played it. We were all like freaking out. It's like, oh god, this game's amazing. Oh, this thing's totally.
But the vent just opened.
Yeah, but within the last 20 hours of the game, we had nicknamed the alien. We had give it a backstory. We had learned all of its behaviors. We were calling it out. We had learned all the tricks in the game. And because like the AI, as much as they like to say it's totally unique and totally special, it's broken as hell in certain spots.
There are ways around it and ways to trick it, which kind of takes you out of the immersion quite significantly, considering you're fighting like one of the galaxy's greatest monsters.
Yeah, which we like by the end of the game, we were just. It was a disappointment when we got to the end, because when it truly finished, when we saw the credits, we were like, okay.
I know what you mean, because I have kind of had the ending spoiled for me. I don't mind, because for me, a lot of times the journey is more important than the ending for me, and obviously it's sequel bait. But it's funny you mentioned that your girlfriend's an Alien fan, because my girlfriend is a massive Aliens fan, to the point that when she was young, she had this she used to watch it with Aliens with her mother.
Yeah.
Regularly. She actually calls it her watch with mother movie.
Oh, nice.
It's great, and she loved what she saw. She doesn't really play games much herself. She's not a huge gamer, but she's enjoyed a few. And what she saw of watching me play Aliens, she loved everything about it, all the attention to detail, the sound, the design of the alien as well.
We couldn't stop saying enough about like the detail in the world and like the atmosphere. And if it was with I think the DLC nailed the game better in a lot of respects, because it was exactly what you wanted. It was exactly everything.
Short, contained, sort of like scary things you can sort of jump into, get scared, jump out again, and go, whoo, okay, I've had my adrenaline fix. It doesn't go on too long, outstay its welcome, and wear down on you. Because that's a problem that some horror games have, of course, is that horror fatigue, where you just get so psychologically battered, you just become dead to it all, and it's like, really? Oh, you're here again.
I think the Resident Evil franchise proved that to like the nail in the coffin.
I was always more of a Silent Hill fan. My brother was a Resident Evil fan. He was a Resident Evil fan. I was the Silent Hill fan. But my favourite Resident Evil game is Nemesis, because I find it the scariest one because of the Nemesis. The way he just stalks through that all the levels, I really, really like that. And it's a shame how far Capcom have fallen with that franchise.
But I was like, they're slowly bringing it back. It gets really weird.
Remaking the originals, remaking the good ones.
Yeah, like remaking the originals, but also with the fact that they with the Revelations,
which I never played that. What platform was that on?
It first came out on DS, and then it got ported onto PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Right. And
I think I played a very brief bit of the 3DS version, like a few seconds or like a minute at most. Like, I don't like these controls, I'm going to play something else, because it was an expo. So.
Yeah, but I believe like it came with like the caveat of on DS you have to play it with a dual stick thing. And at the time, it was like that weird, clunky, like plug-in thing that basically just looked awful, and no one gave it. But on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, worked a lot better.
I imagine it would be it's just absolutely fine on console with actual dual analog sticks, rather than the Monster Hunter stick. That's all it was for, isn't it?
Well, it was to stop, because Nintendo and Capcom have to find a way of stop crippling their fans. Because that's a series that's always baffled me, but I've always wanted to look at was Monster Hunter, but I dreaded the claw, as they called it.
I listened to sort of discussions about it with sort of some interest, but it's not something that's really sort of grabbed me. The thing that interests me most about it is that I've heard it described as like, it's got Dark Souls type combat, or
not
exactly the same, but if you're familiar with Dark Souls, it'll be easier for you to adjust to Monster Hunter than someone who's never played a Dark Souls game. That was one argument I'd heard.
Yeah, I'd heard the same thing, and I would agree to a point.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm gonna change the conversation just slightly a bit more. We were just talking about horror games and all that, and I was just wondering what other types of games are you really into, and what have like been some of the better ones that you've played either in recent or in any period.
Just consult my Steam library here, which I have conveniently loaded. As I say, I do like my horror games a lot. Turn-based strategy is another favourite of mine. I lost many hours to Civilization 2 back in the day. I absolutely loved. I skipped 3 and 4 because I just never got around to them. But I enjoyed Civ 5 with the expansions. Civ 5 needed the expansions it got because it just made it a much better game. Yeah, I had fun with vanilla Civ 5, but also that then brings me to XCOM. I love the original UFO Defense, or UFO Enemy Unknown as it was called in the UK. Terror from the Deep, a lot of people I consider that an inferior one. I think it's actually superior to the original in a lot of ways, and I just love the sort of Lovecraftian deep sea atmosphere. And Apocalypse as well, which it suffered from really badly from feature creep. They tried to sort of like had all these ideas for it, and then they were never able to realize them all. But it's still fun, although the aliens are kind of goofy, in my opinion. I enjoyed Fez. Fez is another one. In any sort of indie game that is just manages to capture my interest. It can be anything. It can be a platformer, it can be a shooter, it can be sort of like puzzle game. I'm sort of pretty broad in my tastes. First-person shooters, not so much. My tastes in FPS tend towards the more like the old arena shooters like UT, Quake, and so forth. Fighting games, probably one of my weaker areas. I play them so casually. I make most pro players just vomit to look at me playing them. And RPGs as well, of course. Knights of the Old Republic, the old Black Isle RPGs. Planescape Torment, still probably my favourite RPG of all time, although Witcher 3 has come very, very, very close to toppling that. RPGs not so much, except for The World Ends With You on the Nintendo DS. Best JRPG ever, in my opinion.
We'll probably have to have a separate discussion, because I keep hearing that game and I keep hearing it crop up, and I really want to. I don't want to. I'm not going to play it because I just don't own a Nintendo product.
Right.
I would just want to just get that information off somebody. But that would be a completely separate conversation, because I got another question in mind that I really want to ask you now.
Okay.
Which is, like, obviously with you going for the past 2 years, and with you like breaking your chops, like getting into like writing about the news and all that.
Yeah.
When you look back at like gaming history, is there a point in which you were like, I wish I was there for that, to cover that? Like, let's say that you could go back with all let's say you could go back at any point with the technology you have now to make a video about any point and to break that news, or just to be there at that point. What would...
Or just to talk about it. Let me close Steam, because that's my first thought is immediately going to be, the launch of Half-Life 2. Covering Portal would have been fun, though, actually. It's just been so many sort of like defining moments, and usually, because I've got so much stuff on my mind recently about sort of various gaming news, particularly Metal Gear, what with Phantom Pain coming out soon. I played. I should say launch of the PlayStation, the PlayStation 1.
The original?
Yeah, because I mean that was absolutely a game changer. They did so many things, so many franchises just really sort of exploded on there. No, the first Final Fantasy game on that generation of consoles, that wasn't on a Nintendo system. They went straight to Sony for that one. That itself was absolutely massive news at the time, because Final Fantasy had always been on Nintendo systems all the way up to 6, and then number 7 comes out on Sony's new machine, on CDs, the FMV on there. It comes out. How many discs is Final Fantasy 7 again?
4.
4 discs.
4 discs.
And you get to this really climactic point and you think, oh wow, this game's amazing. Oh my god, it's only the end of the first disc. I've got 3 more to go. So I'd say Final Fantasy 7 definitely be one. Even
Yeah.
though I'm not that massive a JRPG fan, it's Final Fantasy VII is still one of my favourites. What else? What other sort of pivotal gaming moments? Because see, I grew up playing the home computers was my thing. It was like the ZX Spectrum, and like a friend would have a Commodore 64 or an Amiga. There weren't really any such things as big event titles back then. It was all bedroom programmers, like today's indie scene, sort of making stuff in their bedrooms and going to a publisher and getting it released. Just all sorts of weird games used to play back then.
Yeah. I mean,
sorry, carry on.
sorry, it's all right. But like something like covering Rare, like Rare's history wouldn't, like, just the way that they've come from where, like from the home bedroom stuff to Nintendo to Xbox to where they are now. Like that's one long journey, and
that is one very long journey. And it's funny that you mentioned Rare, actually, because I played a lot of Rare games back when I was a kid, again on my Spectrum. Saberwolf, Night Law, but back then they were called Ultimate Play the Game. And there was another one called BMX Race. I think it was something BMX. There were a lot of BMX games on Specky for some reason, but one of them was like a BMX one where you're going up a straight road and you have to avoid an old lady with a walking stick who was somehow able to throw this walking stick at range like a sort of spear, and it would get stuck in the spokes of your bike and you'd crash. And I think there was a ninja in there as well or something.
Yeah, the ninja that lives near the grandma, of course.
Well, yeah, of course. This was the Specky days, where you could have a game about a miner who gets rich, has a house party at his massive mansion, and then tries to go to bed, but his maid won't let him until he's tidied up the house. A house that's crawling with walking toilets and little devils and giant foots. It's such a mad era back then. But I would have loved to have covered that, but I was like 8 at the time, so.
Are you happy with the fact of with the release of Rare Replay? Are you happy that you can say such games as like Saberwolf and all their real classic ones like the Spectrum games, and not feel like you have to explain it?
Yeah, because one of the first things I did when I heard about that collection was to check the games that were on there, because if it didn't have Saberwolf, I would have definitely mentioned that in a video. I was going to, actually, at one point. I said, it's not a proper Rare collection unless it's got Saberwolf, and then I double checked and it's like, oh, it does have Saberwolf and Night Law and Jetpack. Okay, scrap that part of the video, because I've really got nothing more to say on that bit. But it's got Saberwolf, that's fine.
Pure speculation and a bit of fan side to it. Would you want to see more of that? Like the Rare Replay stuff and just the Spectrum, or just those old consoles?
I definitely love to see more collections, because one problem that gaming has is there is no real curating involved. The only people who are able to curate important games throughout gaming's history, game's relatively short history, is pirates. They're the ones who actually, ironically, do the best job of preserving older games for future generations to play. There is no, with all the different systems, backwards compatibility, stuff that doesn't work properly. There's a lot of gaming history that is just drifting off into obscurity, and no one's knowing about it.
Yeah, and it's that. Obviously, it's a concern, because without that, we don't have much to build on. And with some of the laws, because I believe that in America they've actually opened up an open source kind of deal in which they can actually allow for emulation to kind of happen. Yeah,
as long as I think it's within a certain sort of for an educational purpose or an archiving purpose. And that's a very important step too, getting more curation into gaming's history and just preserving them for future generations, because film doesn't have this problem. Because think of almost any film, from your Citizen Kanes to your Seventh Seals and whatnot. You can watch them on Netflix, you can buy them on DVD, you can get a projector and some old film and just watch it old school like that. With games, it's so much harder to experience those elements of games history, because either you need to play it on original hardware, track down a copy on eBay, or get an emulator working. And even then, emulators aren't perfect. There are limits to emulation, and they don't provide as authentic an experience as even the best emulator can't provide as authentic an experience of playing the game as playing the game on its original system.
Yeah, I think like the ultimate example would be something like Centipede.
Yes.
Because Centipede had the trackball, and no matter like how good an emulation, a 360 pad can't emulate a trackball.
No. It also can't emulate that whole getting the skin on your hand caught between the trackball and the cabinet. I remember doing that when I was a kid. I was like, ow, I'm never playing Missile Command again.
I always remember when always burning like the palm, almost the skin off a palm.
Burns.
Yeah, I'd get those multiple times on like some of the old PlayStation minigame collections that would come out. Because they'd ask you to shake some stuff up, and it's just like,
just have to wag on the analog stick. Yeah. I mean, it's a similar problem with arcade machines as well, because with film, as I was saying earlier, film stopped being transferred to more resilient materials like DVD, Blu-ray, and so forth, even digitally. Old arcade boards wear out, corrode, elements of them fade, and you can't get replacement parts, and emulation will only go so far. Because, the best way to play a lot of old arcade games is on CRT monitors or CRT TVs, but they're getting harder to find now. So people try to sort of set up main cabinets with like an LCD screen. They're functional, but for a real purist, which I'm not, but real purists will tell you that there's the issue of lag as well. There's all sorts of other issues that an expert could quote more. But as I said, they're not perfect. They're not preserved exactly as they are. And that's going to be a problem for gaming going into the future, unless we can find a way to actually accurately and faithfully preserve all these old games.
Just to switch up a bit, to get back to talking about videos and what you actually do.
Yes.
With like how you're covering stuff now, the way that you analyze each week, and you come out with just one video a week.
Yeah.
In the future, will there be something you'd be looking at to like expand? Obviously, you say that you got a full-time job and all that, but when the views come over a certain threshold, would you want to take this full-time, or would you want to remain as it is, just as a little side project?
Without a doubt, I would love to do this full-time. When I'm at my day job, I'm thinking about what I'm going to put into my videos. When I come home, I sort of fight through the exhaustion of a long day at work to get stuff down, unless I'm absolutely shattered and I'm sick or I've got other things to do. But I would just absolutely love to do this full time, and that would be the ideal week for me. I wake up in the morning, I check what's going on in gaming news. If anything catches my eye, I maybe even like possibly do more than one Pixelburn per week. That would be absolutely glorious. Obviously, not covering as many things. Probably about 2 per week. I could do, because I managed that during my time off making the E3 ones. I sort of tried to work really hard in the last week of my time off to actually get more than one video out, and I managed it. It's doable, but I'd have to sort of like. It's not something I can sort of guarantee, but I can definitely just get more videos done in general as well. I just love. There are moments when late at night when we're sitting there editing, slotting the last little pieces together, it becomes almost zen-like in a way. It's nothing else you and what you're working with. You're literally watching it all come together in front of you, and then when it's all done, you give it a watch, and then you render, upload, thumbnail, everything, and it's just done. And it's just such a brilliant rush to actually do that creative rush. And I would just love to do that all the time, full time, definitely.
With that discussion, you wanting to do more, like more each week. Would you be wanting to do more actual coverage, like actually try and like switch it over to less coverage of the news and more like going to events? I know you've gone to EGX in the past, but like going to more or getting it, like would you like going to like press only type stuff? Would that be something that you'd definitely be down for?
I'd definitely be down for doing that. Yeah, I mean, I'd approach it in my own style. I mean, obviously, the thing with the industry is more and more people are turning to YouTubers for their gaming coverage, because you can write a review of a game, but usually you can convey much more information with like a first impressions video, because your audience sees what is happening here's what is happening. Whereas with words, you are limited to describing these things. Whereas with video, it's immediate, it's instant, and people can see instantly that's how it plays. If there's control issues at times, you can be surprised how much you can sort of pick up on dodgy controls just by watching footage of something played by someone who doesn't have an ulterior motive of trying to sell it to you. Although that's another interesting topic about YouTube that we could talk about. If
let's talk about that. Let's talk about, like, would you do sponsored deals?
If I ever did, it would be for something I know or really, really like, or I'm really excited for, and I would sure as hell disclose that outways from Sunday.
XCOM 2 is coming out in spring of 16. I think it just got announced.
It's spring, yep. They delayed it, which is cool.
So they've just given you like a code.
Mm-hmm.
Would you for sponsorship?
I would, but I would disclose it, absolutely. Yep. I believe there's nothing wrong with doing those kind of deals because, hey, we all need to eat at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make it sound dirty or I think it's something wrong. I told
implying you were suggesting that at all. No, I'm just sort of just a general statement we're saying. As I said, we all need to eat, and there's no shame in doing it. There's no shame in doing it promotional, but obviously it depends how you do it as well. Like a sort of a sponsored video to do like just to do like a first impressions video. Well, see, that's so if I did a sponsored one, I'd like to do something like maybe like if XCOM 2 also has multiplayer, something like a multiplayer game where I'm not so much relying on giving my opinion of it, but I'm just playing the game, showing it being played with a friend or enemy in this case, because you'd be 1v1, and just showing how the game is played. That's fine. I still disclose it was a sponsored video, of course. I mean, an example is sorry, I keep saying TGS, but it's Polaris now. When they do their tournaments,
yes,
like the Guns of Icarus one and stuff, they disclose that, which is good because they should still disclose. But you'll notice everyone playing in it is just playing it and having a whale of a time. None of them are saying like, I really admire how the controls handle in this. And as you'll notice, the graphics have just the right amount of fidelity. Beams out from the monitor. Is none of that. It's all just like, you blew up my airship, you bastard. The game, it's a platform which lets the game speak for itself. Reviews, obviously, I would not do a sponsored review. That is a blatant conflict of interest. But I mean, if they provided me source code or a copy to review, that's fine, because that's standard. It's like, it's like, here's something to review. Okay, I will review it. That's the limits of the exchange. If they gave me it and said, here it is, please give us a positive review, I would say no.
So you don't want to, you're not one of those. Sorry, it's just with that example, it automatically sprung into mind. You remember back when Batman Arkham Asylum was about to first come out, or it might have been City. That
I think it was City.
If reviewers gave it a 10 out of 10, they would let them do an early review of it. They would let them post it early, and there's stuff like that just made me chuckle.
Yeah, it might make you chuckle. It makes me just groan. Because it's like, it's so obvious. We're not dumb. We can see what's gone on here. Yours are like the first reviews that come out and they're positive. It's, for God's sake, don't treat your audience like idiots. This is how things like Gamergate happen, But, sorry, going back to the sponsorship thing, I wouldn't be adverse to doing sponsored content. Of course, I say there's no shame in it, but at the same time, of course, I have an obligation to my audience to be honest to them, and I would not betray that at all. I wouldn't accept payment to do something and then just give it like a whitewash and say, hey, everyone, you should all buy this, because that's just disgusting treatment of the community who watch my videos and so forth. I would take review copies and I generally review them, and if the person who gave that game didn't like my review, well, tough.
But that's the way of a review.
That's the way the cookie crumbles, as they say. But any sort of promotional content, if I was ever offered some, would tend more towards the kind of sort of like fun tournament kind of thing. Again, wouldn't do first impressions because that relies on me being objective about it. So I wouldn't do it if it was sponsored. But promotional content would be silly stuff that isn't really journalism, and I would make sure that, or I would insist if it was someone else's video, that it was disclosed.
Yeah,
disclosure it's It's a very simple courtesy disclosure. You just say, yo, I needed money to fix my car this week, so I've done this funny little video. Enjoy. No obligation to buy the game, just enjoy the video.
Whereas, like, because I've been seeing a lot more, obviously, with the rise of YouTube and all that, like, sponsored videos become more or less of the norm, and it definitely seems to be the way in terms of, on the PR side, that they're very much allowing YouTubers to be honest, which is hopeful, which is encouraging, shall I say? Because they know it's free publicity, and through this free publicity, they're getting way more eyeballs on their thing, and it doesn't matter if someone's being honest at all, because everybody else is seeing it, so someone else could see it and go, this guy doesn't like it, but I like the look of it. I'm going to check it out.
Again, it's still more eyeballs on the product at the end of the day, whether a game or there's a lot of sponsored content, and then really sort of like a bit iffy looking if you look at some of them in the makeup YouTubers who do makeup tutorials. It's rife in there. I don't watch loads of it, but my girlfriend does. Because such and such is promoting this, and even a lot of them are still very upfront about disclosure. It's like, I've been paid today to test this makeup out, so blah 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 blah, or whatever they do. I don't know. Like I said, I don't watch makeup tutorials.
Just admit it. Make it a scoop.
No, I don't watch makeup tutorials because I'm entirely self-taught from my goth days. I learned how to put on eyeliner the old-fashioned way by jabbing myself in an eye, or both of them. Liquid eyeliner's the worst, though. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about.
No, was never there for that. I remember being. I'll tell you this quick little story. As a quick little side note. Obviously, I saw two goths, and it was the best thing I'd ever seen. It was up in Whitby.
Well, Gothic Mecca.
Yep. If no one out there knows what Whitby is, you will. And it's
where Dracula landed in Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yes.
In England. Yes.
It's a very, very important place for.
Was it? No, it was in a boat called The Spirit of Whitby. That was it. One or the other.
Yeah, I believe he wrote it up there.
Yeah, he spent a shitload of time in Whitby. Old Bram Stoker did.
But I was like, I saw these two goths. One was a 6'5", lanky, like your typical, just with the big boots,
massive boots,
big trench coat, the
stomping forward.
Yep, everything's going there. He had the coloured contacts, everything. Next to him was his mum.
Oh, that's
wearing the same stuff.
Yeah, I've met plenty of mother and child goth groupings.
I saw that and I was like, that's the best thing I'll probably ever see on this trip.
Absolutely.
And with that, I think that could be the end of our interview.
I think that's a very good place to end it.
Yeah. So with that, shameless plug time. So I'll just let you go right ahead and plug everything you need to.
Right, okay. Well, obviously, you can see Pixelburn every week on youtube.com/bitscreed. That's BITSCREED. That's bits, space, well, not space, but it's pronounced Bits Creed. No, Bitscreed. Oh, God, I got my own thing wrong. It's pronounced Bitscreed. Screed is in angry ranting. Not Bits Creed, the awful band. I'm also at bitscreed.com, where you can read some of my old written work, which is all in the archives there, including like snarky comments about the Games Media Awards, among other things. You can also reach me on Twitter at, unsurprisingly, Bitscreed, BITSCREED. And I think that's pretty much where I spend most of my time, YouTube, Twitter, and my site. So there you go.
And thank you very much. This has been another huge update interview. I've been Alistair at Alice R, whatever my name is. It's spelled on Twitter. It'll be on the links down below.
In the description. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so everything's there, and I'll make sure that all Bitscreed's stuff is all there for you, because I'm just nice like that. Anyway, thank you so much for this second interview, and yeah. So
no problem. Thank you for having me again.
So goodbye and
cheery byes, folks.